Greetings and salutations. Welcome to Knife Chats with Tobias. Trust me, the video here is going to be on this knife here, the Buck 761 Twin Peaks. But before I get started on that, I just wanted to show you my deck of Sailor Jerry's Spiced Navy Rum playing cards. I just got this on eBay at the same time that I got the knife, so I decided to throw in some pictures of the cards in the slideshow with the knife because, well, this is a bartender style knife, and Sailor Jerry's Spiced Navy Rum, I mean, kind of goes together, right? Rum and bartending. And by the way, I will also explain once again that a bartender's knife is not the same as a bartender's tool. If you're new to the channel, you probably are not aware that I also collect decks of playing cards. I got this one on eBay, and I want to warn people who also are thinking about picking up decks of cards on eBay. There's a lot of people on eBay who like to sell individual cards and not the entire deck of cards, and they will often sell the individual one card for the same price as an entire deck of cards. So be very careful when you're looking at your eBay listings. You want to make sure you get the entire deck, not just a single card. And you'll see more of the cards in the slideshows. In any case, what we're really here for is this knife here, the Buck 761, which is known as the Twin Peaks. This was a knife designed by Peter Whittaker of mountaineering fame for Buck, and it's a really cool knife, and it is a definite new take on the bartender knife. This is the third modern style of bartender knife I picked up, and I tell you what, if I would have picked this one up first, I may not have picked up either of the other two. This one goes all out when it comes to being a modern bartender knife. To begin with, the handles here are GFN, so it's the a plastic handle or a thermoplastic handle going on. You see that there are torque screws holding it together, and I think that's really not holding it together. It is just to adjust the tightness of the blades, so you can make the blades tighter or looser. Notice the blades all open with thumb studs, so this is all one-hand opening knives, or knife blades all around. The main blade, all of the blades also lock with a liner lock. This is the main blade. It's a beautiful little drop point blade going on there, half serrated, 2.5 inches long. The serrated portion is about 1 1/8 of an inch. Notice there is the 761, and you see the little arrow symbol there. That is showing that this knife was made in 2008 and clearly stamped Buck. And you see, those handles are just beautiful. They're really elegant. They also made this in blue, and there's usually a little mountain peak symbol right there on the handle, but because this knife is made in China, that little symbol wears off pretty quickly, and well, that's why this one doesn't have it. This was definitely bought secondhand, and it's used, but very lightly used. This thing is like it's in brand new mint condition. I think this was just a shelf queen. And second blade over here, this is the left-handed cap lifter and a little screwdriver tip there, and I guess you could use it as a screwdriver, but it's going to be a little offset. You got the lanyard hole up there too, and then on the other side here, look at this wonderful blade. It easily opens. Nice little Warncliffe. That's your label cutting blade also, if you wanted to use it for a label cutter. It's also just good for slicing because it's got that wonderful straight line going there. So you've got a very useful main blade for multiple tasks, and then obviously the Warncliffe blade for other tasks that you can have. Nice little slicer there, but it does have a good body going to it. Wonderful grind going onto it too. It is definitely a hollow grind. The blades on this are all 420J2. The knife is like did I mention it? I did not mention it. The knife is actually made in China using 420J2. Typically when Buck makes a knife in China, The blade steel is usually 420J2. A lot of people still say that it's 420HC. It is not. It's 420J2. And finally, the last thing you have on here is the corkscrew, and it is a pretty tight corkscrew to get out. Some people say you can open that corkscrew one-handed. I don't know who they are. I sure couldn't. But proper length for a corkscrew on that you find on your typical bartender knife. So it's about 1.25 inches or so of a good corkscrew pulling cork there. Like I said, it is not a waiter's tool or a bartender tool. This is actually just a knife that has had a corkscrew added to it and a few other tools that will make it useful for the bartending jobs. But this is not a true, it's not going to work nearly as well as a waiter's tool that has the lever and everything else. But really good cap lifter going on to it too, though. All in all, this knife feels really good in the hand. You have the liner lock right there. You can feel it, but it doesn't really get in the way that much. And it's you see the shape of the handle is much thinner up at the front. It widens in the back because of the blades in the back there. So it is kind of like with a split back whittler in some ways, in that, narrow up front, wider in the back. Look at how thick that is too for the lanyard hole. And that's the other thing, the fact that it has a lanyard hole. I don't know. I really like this knife. Like I said, if I would have gotten this one first, I may not have gotten either of these two here. I probably would have, simply because I collect them. But let's now compare the Whittaker 761 Twin Peaks to these two knives and see how it goes from there. I guess I'll start by picking on the Rough Rider Reserve Barback once again, and that is, it's got some interesting blade choices on here. It's got the funky Wharncliffe blade with the cap lifter built into the back of the spine there, and this is working off of washers for the blade movement, but it is basically a slip joint, and so that's one of the things that makes it, and really that was their design. The design philosophy of all the Rough Rider Reserve knives is making a traditional knife, but using modern build technology, so you end up with the washers for the blade and everything else. It's a totally different concept than what you have with the Whittaker. The Whittaker is actually a modern take on a traditional pattern knife, and it's really updating how it works and everything else. So we're not talking slip joint anymore. We're talking about thumb studs and one hand opening and everything else. The Barback went kind of retro, I guess you could say. It's like, we're going to take all the modern techniques we have and we're going to cram it into an old traditional style of knife. And that is the same thing that was done with the triple play by CRKT. Once again, they're using modern building techniques and stuff for it, but you notice all the blades have nail nicks, and it's basically a slip joint with a new style. So this is just like a someone saying, well, I like the bartender knife. Let's grab a bartender knife real quick. I don't know if I've reviewed this one yet or not, but this is the case style of bartender knife, and this was also not that old. This was, I think, from 2003 or so. But you see here, the stag bone handle. So instead of a stag bone handle, they have a wood handle on this one, and you see the corkscrew on the backside, and then the blade choices that they had, which were the spear blade. And these knives instead, it has a spear blade, but it's a much bigger, heavier spear blade. So basically what they did was make a big fat knife and said, now we've got a modern style of bartender knife. And I guess that's one way of looking at it. But then what you have in the Whittaker is a modern knife that has been turned into a bartender knife, I guess is one way to look at it. Because this knife, let's face it, if they would have left off these two side blades and left this off and just made this knife with this handle shape and just left it with the one single blade, a lot of people would have said, man, that's a really good looking folder, a modern folder. And that's really what it is. I mean, and that's kind of what Case did with this knife. They took their gun stock knife and they converted it into a bartender knife by adding a corkscrew on the back and then changing and adding the label cutter blade on the back here. Now the difference is once again the Whittaker knife here, the Twin Peaks, instead of having two blades at the top, it put only the one blade at the top, which is more common with a modern folder. And they have it with the liner lock, and you can definitely open and close this thing one-handed. And then instead of a secondary pin blade, they kind of combine the label cutting blade with and their secondary pin blade on this knife. These two blades here. And instead of having a pin blade and the little hawkbill blade, they said, well, we can just go ahead and put in a Warncliffe blade here. This will take and function just as well as this pin blade does here. And if we need to use it as a label cutting blade, we can definitely use it as a label cutting blade too. So they basically replaced both of those blades with the Warncliffe blade here. And that left room so that they could add the one thing that everyone really wants in a bartender knife, and that is the cap lifter or bottle opener. Now both of these knives also have bottle openers. The Barback has it integrated into the handle here, or into the spine of the blade. And as many people have said, this knife would have probably been better off if they would have put a cap lifter on into this blade, just made this a cap lifter and had this blade going straight, or just having a single bladed knife with the cap lifter there, because once you put the cap lifter in there, it gets a little bit in the way there. I'm getting more and more used to it, but sometimes it definitely catches on your finger and it bothers you. So, and the fact that it lacks a corkscrew means that it is not a true bartender knife anyway. This one, the cap lifter is integrated into the handle here, which is good enough, I guess, and it does work, and that is something that is common in a lot of inexpensive bartender knives, is to have a cap lifter integrated into the handle. But that is also one of the reasons why this knife is as wide as it is, possibly. This knife is just as wide. Actually, not as wide. Notice the CRKT is a much chunkier knife than this one is, and part of that is the way they designed it. So this one, they're all close in weight. I have weighed them all, and you'll see that they're pretty much close in weight. But I think, yeah, this one, for some reason, even though they're all very close in weight, this one just feels lighter. And part of it is just because of the way it fits your hand. This one fits your hand so much nicer, and so it has a better balance in the hand than either of these two knives, if that makes any sense to you. But sometimes two knives of the same weight, the one that has a better balance to it just feels better in the hand, and that's the case with this one. You notice how it is sculpted right here, and you got a little bit of grip going on there, and that is on the same way on both sides. So the knife is basically left or right-handed carry, even though the main blade, main spring there, because of the liner lock, it is really designed for the right-handed person, so you can push it across and close it. But anyone who's left-handed has already figured out how to do that and knows how to do it. So it'll work either way for left or right-handed person. And obviously, as you can see here, the cap lifter screwdriver blade is left-handed, and the worn clip blade is right-handed. But all the blades can open and close pretty easily with one hand, either left or right hand. Now this one, obviously, left-handed, you're going to have a major problem trying to open it. But I guess if you're really in an emergency situation, you could do it. And obviously closing it left-handed. There you go. A little bit of a struggle, but the blades actually open and close pretty well. And just like the texturing on this one looks, it just looks better than either of these knives. And I tell you what, in many ways, it even looks better than the, it's just got some really sleek lines going to it. I don't know what else to say. I mean, this knife, it's like Buck and Peter Whittaker designed a terrific knife for anyone who's interested in bartender knives, because this one, I think it hits all the bells and whistles when it comes to a bartender knife, and it is just a terrific little modern folder. Unfortunately, it is discontinued, so if you're going to find one, you're going to find it on the secondary market, and some of them can get a little pricey, but right now you can also seem to find them for the $20 to $30 range. So, but some of the Whittaker knives go up for a lot more than that. Anyway, I think I've rambled on enough about this knife. I think you can also tell that I'm really impressed with it. I really like this one. I like it better than both of these knives put together any day of the week. And it's one of those knives that I think I'm going to try and get a second one so I can throw one of them in the pocket and carry it, because this feels really good in the hand. In any case, stick around for some slides. I think it's time to let you go. I can keep saying over and over how much I like that knife, but how many times do you need to hear it?
let me take just a second to thank you once again for dropping by and spending a few minutes here at Knife Chats with the Pious. I really do appreciate it, and I do appreciate any comments that you leave. So please remember to give me that thumbs up, and also don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you'll know when the next episode is up and running. Thanks again for dropping by. Really do appreciate your time here.